Good morning. Welcome back to Array Festival Digital Tech Innovation celebration here at the heart of the city region of Lancaster. And we're kicking off low carbon innovation. We've big subject in the city region right now, and of course across the world. So much going on, so much government commitment and support to this low carbon innovation agenda. COP26 later this year up in Glasgow, and of course in our region, City Council are really pushing forward on this climate emergency strategy to make sure that we're all doing our bit and really thinking about what the future of a sustainable society looks like. And here in the heart of Lancaster, of course, we've got some incredible businesses that are doing more than their share of supporting this low carbon agenda. So I'm really pleased that this morning we've been able to kick off today with this panel discussion with three businesses in the region that are doing just some fantastic work around low carbon, around recycling, and around this idea of circular economy. So in a moment, I'm going to introduce you all to Craig Smith, who's the Managing Director of Mazuma in the UK, Sam Coggin, who's Director of the Coggin Group, and Claire Louise Chapman, who's a social value consultant with a shared value business. So good morning to all three of you. Thanks for joining.
Morning, Dan.
Morning. Craig, I'm going to come to you first. It'd be great if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and about Mazuma and the business that you've
got. I'm Craig Smith and local to the area, grew up in the area, and today I run both Mazuma, which is a business to consumer site. A lot of people know about it, hopefully, but when you talk about it, genuinely a lot of people do know about it.
It's a big brand. It really is.
It's a big brand, and we're really proud of it. So the essence of that company is that it offers to buy back your old mobile phone. We've recently pushed into buying your old laptops and wearables, iPads, and also now games consoles. To the consumers, and we also, as you know, we run ICT Reverse as well, which is a B2B brand, taking again away, assets that have become redundant, whether it be laptops, desktops, servers, hard drives, that we do for the B2B. So we run a B2C company in Mazuma and a B2B company in ICT Reverse.
Smashing. Thanks a lot, Craig. And Claire Louise, tell us about yourself, what you do.
I'm a social value consultant, which means that I support organisations to embed practices, operational practices that support society and the planet, essentially. Particularly working with businesses that work in government-driven supply chains, because social value is a thing. So.
And it's becoming much more.
The law's changed, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger, really. So.
Brilliant. And Sam, thanks for coming and joining us. Tell us a little bit about what you do in the Coggin Group.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm the owner of the Coggin Group and TCG Direct. We've been a family business since '69. We've been predominantly remanufacturing and upcycling office furniture, although back in '69 when we started off with my granddad, we were agricultural merchants, believe it or not, and we weirdly transitioned from agricultural merchants to office clearance. So we were working kind of through the government, clearing offices for them. Off the back of that, we saw a great avenue to not just take all this furniture to the tip, as everybody was kind of doing back then. And we thought, how can we add more value to this furniture? And this was kind of the start from a dad, was adding value to redundant furniture through, resizing desks, for example, reupholstering chairs. And it's kind of just scaled up into this bigger thing, especially nowadays with more people being conscious around sustainability. Obviously, waste office furniture is such a big thing, but it's kind of a grey area. Not many people know so much about it, but I think there was a stat release, there's about 300 tonnes a day still going to landfill, which is a crazy number, considering people don't want to talk about landfill, but it is happening. So the way we're trying to battle this is the Coggin Group's our B2B brand that talks to the corporate businesses out there. And then we've got the TCG Direct brand, which is the outlet channel. So the Coggin Group lets us talk to get the big clearances in, whereas TCG Direct lets us deal with everybody around Lancashire.
Great, incredible. Interesting that the two businesses there as well both kind of have this B2B arm, but also the B2C arm as well. So, and just anybody who's tuning in, by the way, and anybody who's watching, audience, if you've got any questions, of course, we've got the platform here live, so I can get the questions through the chat chat function there, and of course we've got the microphone set up if anyone's got any questions they'd like to ask the panel later on. So, Craig, I'm going to come to yourself first because I mean, over the last couple of years, we've got to know you and the story, and I think one of the stories that kind of I always find really interesting is when you started the business back, kind of coming towards the end of your time with Orange, and what was happening there. And I know you kind of became the go-to man. Just tell us a little bit about that and that time.
When I was working for Orange at the time, my job was to effectively encourage people to use Orange rather than the competition, Vodafone, Cellnet as it was, and one-to-one, if anyone can remember that.
And when was this? Yeah, context.
Late 90s.
Yep.
And our job was to, and because Orange had its own mobile phone, you couldn't like today you can use a different phone with a different SIM card. In those days, if you were going to convert to Orange, you had to use an Orange phone. It'd look exactly the same as a Vodafone phone, but it'd have those again who remember it had a little orange square on it, and it was an Orange phone. So every time we converted somebody across, or even upgraded somebody who was an existing customer, they had new hardware all the time. There was, again, you've got to remember it was mid to late 90s, there was absolutely no thought really about anybody recycling and we were just pushing more and more product on the market. Some of the bigger companies that we dealt with started to say, well, we've got an environmental policy and we'd like to understand how we can give back these phones. We took 100 phones off you 2 years ago. 2 years later, we're going to upgrade to the latest phone, but we want to understand what we're going to do with these 100 phones that you've given us. And again, the area was a little grey as well on who owned the asset, because the network, Orange in this case, didn't want the asset back. The customer had finished with the asset. They didn't want, bigger companies were like, well, we want to do something with this, and there was just no process at all. And that's how I started my first business. In the fact that I realised there was value in these assets, and I left Orange and started a company called SHP. Which stood for second-hand phones. People used to ask what the SHP was. They'd cumulate some grand plan of what it was, but it stood for second-hand phone.
There's some big branding agency that had come up with this idea.
Yeah, I can't take any credit. It was myself and another guy, a great friend of mine, a partner. We left, and we both set up. The three of us actually, in the end, set up this company. All left Orange and set up this company. And one of the other guys came up with it, literally in a pub. And he said, we'll call it SHP. And we did, and we ran that company for a very long time, very successful. And we just used to ring corporates and say, have you got any old mobile phone?
Yeah.
And they used to say yes. And we used to say, can we take them? And they used to say, yeah, why do you want them? And people were just upgrading their phones, as everyone will remember. And we used to walk into companies and they'd have literally boxes and boxes of old mobile phones. We used to bring them in. We didn't really do a lot to them, and then we used to resell them, and we used to sell them on to various other countries that were behind in terms of technology in the UK, and that was how we first started. But as you can see, that's a perfect example of reuse, and I think we did a lot of good, and we were successful.
And would you say that the typical corporate now is much more in tune with this idea of environmental and recycling, or do you still think there is there still some way to go?
There's a long way to go, but I do think now, when we talk to some of the certainly the larger clients, sustainability is always on. If it's not top of the agenda, it's in the top two or three things that we're talking about. I mean, we also, we have a lot of success now where we resell iPhones back into corporates, and these corporates could easily afford to buy brand new assets, but they don't want to. And with laptops is a good example. We do a lot of work with a company called Circular Computing, which is all about bringing laptops in and getting them back to a really, really high standard, and then putting them back. And I know that they've just secured a really big order from central government for 2,000 pieces. Wow! Simply because the government, they realised that the value in the sustainability of buying an asset that's reused, and we do a lot of work with that on iPhones. So with our iPhones, we bring them back. With the old companies, SHP, we didn't really do a lot to them. We brought them in, moved them on. But now, we spend a lot of time getting them back to the best they can be, so that when they do go back into a corporate or an end user, they're literally as good as new.
And you've added the value back in the process.
Yeah, exactly.
Fabulous. Sam, you've recently taken over the family business. Tell us a little bit more about that then, and some of the processes that you're doing in kind of adding value back into. I can imagine it's a real treasure trove of wonders going into the site there. What sort of things do you do with furniture then?
Yeah, so it all starts off with the client either, downsizing office. Obviously, that's been going on a lot with the whole COVID situation. Everyone's downsizing, so there's a heck of a lot of redundant office furniture still on the market. But the process generally works where a client will ring us up. They've got lots of redundant furniture. We'll go in, we'll do an audit on the furniture. We'll try and find the value, because we're always trying to give more incentives to the corporates to let them know that there is actually some value left in the furniture. And what we're finding with that is if there is money or value still left in the furniture, they're actually gifting that to a foundation charity of their own, or they'll put it towards a project that they're maybe having again within that office. But yeah, once it gets past that stage, we work with quite a few top tier relocation businesses around the UK that allow us to cover pretty much the whole of the UK. From there, we'd bring it back to our facility in Lancashire, just down the road actually in Forton. I think we've got about 50,000 square foot now, just dedicated to warehousing, furniture, and I think we've just dedicated, it's about 20,000 square foot just to break it down and recycle it, because not everything can be saved. There is some rubbish on the market that's just not safe enough to be able to put back on the market, but we want to control that side of things, rather than letting the client think, okay, let's just get a skip outside the building and chuck all the rubbish in a skip, because that ultimately will not get recycled, or it'll go somewhere and just be buried. So that has been probably one of our biggest USPs at the minute, because the client can, literally send it all to us, make it hassle-free, and know that they're doing the right thing with it. But the battle has been in talking to the decision makers to let them know that is possible. There's quite a lot of politics involved with furnishing an office. So trying to break through to those guys and have these discussions, it's been difficult, because it's generally a cost-saving thing, or who you know when you're in those places. But yeah, we're definitely starting to get out there. Obviously, we're doing a lot on social media. We're doing a lot of videos on how we're doing things, and that's what's given us the attention to actually get past the people that are maybe stopping us talking to the people we need to. But yeah, we've definitely seen a massive increase in people wanting to find out more about what we're doing. So yeah, the trajectory for where we're going, and I think going forward in the next 5-10 years, what we do will just be a standard thing within the industry. I think manufacturers will talk to us and want us to help them. There's a local manufacturer in Bolton that are now talking to us about they're struggling to win work off the back of they can't take the client's furniture away when they're putting the new stuff in. So it is becoming part of the process of furnishing an office, what's actually happening with all the redundant furniture.
A real end-to-end process then, isn't it?
Definitely.
And it just reminded me, I mustn't forget to mention, by the way, sub 36 LBV. We're all rooting for you, Sam. Real star, by the way, of social media. So TikTok, LinkedIn, connect up with Sam, because he's doing some fantastic stuff on there.
Thank you.
While we're on, I'm coming to you in a moment, Claire Louise, but while we're on the congratulations as well, Laptops for Kids, yourself, City Council, the support of Craig and ICT Reverse, just an incredible project to support so many people in the region during the lockdown, and congratulations to you and yourself, Craig, for just the support. I thought it was a real phenomenal project. Claire Louise, recycling is becoming clearly much bigger part of strategy for large organisations, government organisations, public sector. You work really closely with, I know you've been involved, done some work with Craig and up at Sellafields, and just tell us what are the implications of all this? What are the implications for the business, for the supply chain?
Yeah, it's really interesting sitting between these two guys, because they do the provision of actually fixing kit, whereas the bit that I do is I work with businesses to help them design those policies. And help change those cultures within organisations to say, right, there are the opportunities to do this. So I think that the level that I work at is there's understanding the government policies around this. So there is a government waste policy, and circular economy is a part of that. So as society, we are really being much more aware of reducing our consumption in the first place, minimising our waste and supporting the things that we have produced to last longer, which is essentially the circular economy aspect of it. And public sector is really driving a lot of this as well, in terms of if you are an organisation that works within public sector supply chain, you will be starting to be asked those questions. So it's really big. And let's, I've got to plug the global goals here as well, to be honest. That if people have not heard of the Sustainable Development Goals, they are a worldwide set of 17 goals that have been agreed by lots and lots and lots of countries across the world that are setting targets towards how we start to tackle some of these really big social and environmental problems that we have. And goal 12 is around resource consumption, minimising our resource consumption. So everything that's drilling down is aligned to these really big, goals that everybody can get behind, really.
We're really getting the sense then now that there's some real expertise in the region for these things, and the businesses that we've got here really understand what's going on in the public sector, where to add value in the supply chain with refurb recycling. On the other side of things, and I open this to all of you, whoever kind of jumps in first, what's Joe Public saying about this? What are customers saying about, are you finding that the customers are evolving now? Are we finding changing behaviours?
For me, not as much as you'd think. I think. I
don't feel surprised to hear that.
Not as much as you think. We've recently launched a new brand that we call Second Life Device.
Okay.
And that's all about. Currently, we don't really sell to the end user, and we'd like to. So we've launched a new company called Second Life Device. It's currently in development, and hopefully we're going to launch it this year. And it's all about effectively selling an iPhone back to the end user. And we've done some polling, and we've had some companies in to look at logos and design and ask those people, and quite a lot of people, frankly, said no, I wouldn't buy a second-hand iPhone. Yeah. And then when we've shown them the iPhone that we're looking to produce, they've then completely changed their mind, because their vision of whether you talk about Second Life or used or second-hand or re-life or pre-loved or whatever word you use, in some people's mind, that product is inferior to a new product. And when we had a local company in looking at doing some work for us on marketing, great firm not far from here, and the guy said, I'd never buy a second-hand iPhone. And then I said, well, there's ours. And he said, I'd buy that. But you've just got to get there, haven't you?
Yeah.
But yeah, in general, not as further on as maybe you'd hope. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because this is one of the reasons we have the showroom, because we want people to come and check the products and actually see them for themselves. And we actually have people come into the showroom, sit in one of our refurbished chairs, and then as soon as it gets to the end sale, they'll see it's been upcycled, and the stigma behind something being used, especially if someone doesn't want to buy a used product, they won't want to buy it, even though the decision is swayed. They will buy it off the back of the appearance, but I think people just think, oh, it's second hand. I don't want something that's been used before. So there's definitely still a stigma around it. I think, like Craig says, the marketing behind it and doing a bit of clever marketing and making it more of a trend rather than a redundant, obsolete product is the way to win people's decision on that problem that I think the second-hand market gets, definitely.
Any thoughts, Claire?
I think a huge amount of my work is around cultural change. It's actually, so I can support all the policies and processes in the world, but actually if there is not a desire by people within an organisation to do this, and I think that's my perspective, it's showing people that things work, that things are good quality, that actually this system can work, and there is that guidance needed, isn't there? Mm-hmm. It's like going and actually looking at things, and people, like, oh, right, okay, yeah, right. So it's like, yeah, we've got to remember, we've had years and years and years of new, and it's like, it's going to take us a while just to get into that mindset of going, actually, we can think about things a different way, and we can do things a different way.
We talked about, it's quite interesting there, and sort of what I'm hearing is one of the challenges around marketing and how do we position these conversations, we change culture, how do we get people actually in front of this thing and say, look, it's as good as that thing there. Do you think and just kind of looking at our own lives and thinking to mine, and what do you think about in terms of like maybe education and working with young people? Is that something that kind of comes across your radars at all, and sometimes perhaps again open to all of you, but
a little bit of experience I've got with my own kids and stuff like that is they're less bothered about new, actually.
Really?
Yeah, my daughter's got an iPhone that looks like it's been dragged behind a car for a while. And I did say to her, she's not bothered. Yeah, not bothered. And I think Claire Lou's exactly right. We've had years and years and years and years of people, throwing a microwave away and buying another one for 99 quid. And, I remember a friend of mine once throwing a microwave out because he couldn't be bothered cleaning it because he could buy one for 59 quid. And he'd spent that long at it. I mean, I think this microwave probably would have took quite a lot of cleaning. But I remember somebody else commenting on that and saying, yeah, we live in a complete throwaway society.
This is, the disposable nature of it.
You've got to get away from that, haven't you? And the cultural thing, and I think Claire Louise makes a great point that we've had years and years and years of that. And again, I know Sam very well, know his business, fantastic business, but you've just got to get people to use the stuff. I mean, if you think now about, we were just talking then about Herman Miller, top premium brand of, the chair. I mean, after that chair's been used by arguably a very affluent corporate, and they give it away. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, is there?
There isn't, definitely.
And that's what they £1,000 chair?
£1,000 chair, yeah.
£1,000 chair.
And I think one of the biggest issues with that, obviously, I think it's easy to become a throwaway society when there's so many cheap, inferior products on the market. So, if you've got a great product and it goes bust and you don't really know how good that product is, you're going to go and buy a cheaper product just for convenience, aren't you? But I think if you know your brands, and I think that's the educational bit, if you know your brands, you know the quality. No, most people don't have problems buying a good quality second-hand car. So why is it different when for anything else that you look at?
Yeah.
But I think it comes down to being reputable and being good at what you do. I think there's been a lot of people in this space that, as we like to call them, cowboys. They're not really looking to really scale up or really get the message out there to the masses. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. We want to educate people, but we're not sure who exactly needs educating. I think it's just a waiting kind of time for people to slowly start seeing what we're doing. But the limelight is on it now. It's definitely getting the attention it needs.
Car market do really well, don't they? If you look at like Network Q, or when you look at that, I think remember the Mercedes advert where the child always got a hand-me-down, and then he got a hand-me-down Mercedes, and he didn't. They do it really, really well. It's a good example of how people have been, again, using Claire Louise's cultural point. Nobody bothers about that, do they? But yeah, it's getting. But equally, I would say it's getting there. I do believe that people are much more in tune to it, and I think it's changing. I think it's changing at a good speed as well.
Yeah. Sam, you just mentioned about this idea. In some industries, kind of people have been perhaps opportunists, seeing that there's this changing tide, and great opportunity to make a quick pound. I'm guessing some of those people fall away quite quickly. It must be the same in phone tech.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you make a commercially viable business in this space of recycle, reuse? How do you make a success of that?
I think obviously reputation is a big thing. I mean, that's why I always try. I mean, it's hard in this space because we're always at the forefront of it. So it's very hard to look at other people that have had a lot of success and gone, okay, people take that business serious. How do we do something similar to be able to grow it in a way where it's taken as serious as that? But being at the forefront, we're kind of always learning. But I think, if you have got passion for something and you have that reputation of doing the right thing and getting it out there, that's the start of it. But how far it can actually go, I don't know. But the problem with this space has been there has been people coming in and out of it and damage the reputation of refurbished office furniture. There's people gone in and ripped people off through it. So I think it's been almost held back. We're definitely disrupting it through doing what we're doing. We have an argument with the manufacturer probably every other day about redistributing the products, because even those guys don't really want it to happen because it's upsetting distributors, new distributors. But the argument is it's not going to the same audience, because generally the audience that we sell to couldn't justify spending £1,000 on a Herman Miller chair, but they quite happily go out. If they've sat on one before, they'll quite happily spend half that amount on it. But yeah, for me, making it commercially viable, obviously everyone's got to make money from it. You know, we can't just, there is charities in this space that are giving furniture away, which is great, but it limits how far you can really go with it and scale. But yeah, I think for me, it's been reputation. It's getting behind the products that we're refurbishing, getting my face behind it, and just showing people how far we can go with it, and sticking our name on the products. Like, we go as far as actually relabeling products as our own. It's telling people on the back of them that it's been upcycled and it can be recycled again. So even a second life, it can come back to us again, generally if the product's good. So just little things like that, I think, is making it a viable, commercially viable for us. But I've had, my granddad and my dad before me set the foundation, so I've had it very lucky in the sense that we've got a great network. I think if anyone else comes into this space, my advice would be just don't come into it for a quick win. Look at the bigger picture of this. It is the future. We just don't know when that's kind of going to be set in stone. Yeah.
We've got a couple of questions that have come in on the online chat, and again, if anybody wants to ask any questions, please do feel step forward, and we've got the microphone there. I think, Claire Louise, I'll come to you with this question, and this is around government, and it's should more be done to enforce change by government and authorities in this space, do you think?
I think government can lead by example, definitely. If we're talking around, I think if we're just talking pure circular economy, yes, I think that what it would be really nice to see is government actually adopting these practices themselves, because government's quite good at creating policy and expecting people to do stuff, whereas actually it kind of all begins at home, doesn't it? So it would be really nice to see government actually saying, we've done this office, we're actually using repurposed kit where possible. And I think there's all, when we think about all the stuff that government does, the innovation parts and stuff, I think there is more that could be done. But I also think that sitting there waiting for government to tell us what to do is the road to madness, really, to be honest. I think there's so much that business can just get on with. You don't need to be told to do this stuff. Let's just crack on. It's not rocket science,
When we go to the sound bites section of this, the government, waiting for the government will be the road to madness, I think, will be certainly one of the snippets that features there. Craig, a question that's coming from Stefan for you. What? Very straightforward question, really. What can somebody expect to pay for the same phone, recycled, refurbished, against the new version of the same thing?
As a benchmark, about 50%, 60%, I'd say. Some of the units that, like I say, we don't currently do it, and it's something that we're going to launch through a different brand, Second Life device. But on launch, some of the phones we were looking at, retailing at £1,000, we're looking at £550 for. So again, we tried to come up with the idea that the phone is as good as new. The phones that we offer, probably after you've had it about a few days in your pocket, it's probably about the same. There might be a couple of marks on it, but then those marks are going to pick up the same sort of thing. Price is the first thing. Second thing, on our message is that you've done something positive for the environment, and we're trying to come up with a no compromise slogan because people don't want to compromise for that. But to answer that question, about 60-50%, I'd say.
Wow, so it's big difference for the same thing.
For the same thing,
basically. Yeah. I'm interested, just quickly. Sorry, John, do you want to grab a quick? Come and step forward to the mic, please do.
Folks, I'm John Mullen, but I was just wondering, do you actually believe that new products should actually be taxed a lot higher to actually increase the market space for recycling?
Craig?
I think, from the government point of view and how you encourage people to use other I can see why you would say that. Personally, no, I don't believe they should be. I think that there should be, there'll always be people who can afford that. And I think you've got to change people's mindset rather than trying to tax them out of it. So for me, no, John. But I understand why you'd say that, and I think from Claire Louise's point of view, it's about shifting that mindset, really, for me.
Yeah, I think my response to that is that's a good question. My immediate response is innovation. Would that stifle innovation? If you think about new things that are being developed and the innovation that we can encourage in that in terms of resource usage, would that start to stifle innovation of new products? I don't know whether it would, but we don't want to do that either, because actually innovation is a very good thing in many ways, and it consistently improves. So I don't know, that's just a perspective.
Yeah, good question. I mean, for us, there's always a place for new, especially quality products. They've definitely got a place on the market. But one thing we have always argued is, should second-hand furniture be taxed the same as a brand new product? Can we make second-hand more appealing by making that more affordable? If it's ever going to go that way, we don't know. There's things out there that have had the back chopped off and DVDs, second-hand DVDs and all that kind of stuff. But we have had talks about, can we make second-hand office furniture more appealing through the price, because it is generally a price game. For us, if it's more affordable, that's generally the appeal. But yeah, I think it's just a case of seeing where it goes and seeing where we end up, for sure. Yeah.
Brilliant.
But I think you could incentivise businesses. I think there's probably some mechanism.
I mean, we do
to
pay less tax
incentivise.
on margin. We pay our VAT under a marginal VAT scheme, which is for second-hand goods. Right. So, arguably, there is a incentive from the government to pay less tax through marginal, second-hand products. Mm-hmm. I try and steer away from calling them second-hand products as much as possible, but it's the easiest way of explaining it, I suppose, on the marginal tax. So there is an incentive there. I mean, if there were more, that would be fantastic, but there is already something in that place.
It sounds like we're really coming up to a point in history. The tide is really kind of building now and ready to just kind of come through and change the space in people's opinions. And I'm really interested in what. I'm really getting the kind of the idea about the culture as being a key thing. So I'm going to just a final question for Claire Louise. What do you think companies can be doing now to be ready to future-proof them in them spaces? And then perhaps the other two guys might want to add some comment. What can organisations be doing now to be ready for this?
Okay, so I tend to say to businesses, we start simple for a start. So there's always going to be some quick wins. There's some stuff that you can... Office
furniture and mobile phones.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Two examples here. But yeah, it's about looking at how you consume, what products you're consuming, what your buying behaviours are, and just assessing those buying behaviours. And actually, yeah, it is that, as I say, it's kind of cultural. It's just... It needs somebody to actually be interested in this, who's actually interested in sitting down and having a look at stuff and just going, we could do something about that. So yeah, do the simple stuff, because there's no reason why you wouldn't do the simple stuff, and then set up those practices within your organisation where you're constantly assessing, or just regularly looking at how what your purchasing behaviours are, what are your disposal systems. So a lot of this around the Laptops for Kids project. What the Laptops for Kids project was really set up to do was to encourage businesses to donate devices which we can then get out to those in society who are disadvantaged digitally. But some of the limiting factors are that organisations are saying, yeah, but we already have an agreement with this company to dispose in this way. And my response to that is, when that agreement is ready for renewal, have a conversation about this. That at that point, so it's in your psyche, and it's like, right, okay, and sit and say, does this work for us as an organisation? There'll be some organisations that go, actually, do you know what, this doesn't work for us. But just using the excuse, no, we already have an agreement, in my mind, is simply not good enough. That's my little socialist. But it's if we want to create change, we need to start thinking and using our brains.
Craig, any thoughts from you?
I think a lot of companies are trying to do the basics, and I think there's a lot of help. I mean, in this, I know you're a big fan of this area, and so am I. And I think as a business in this area, we've currently just got involved in a McCaw project, which is University of Central Lancashire, which is helping us look at our business from start to finish, whether it be how we consume things, what our waste streams are. We have a lot of plastic that we get rid of, and I personally feel we can do better with that. So they've come in to look at that. And we're running a project with Lancaster University, which is all about, we're currently investigating bioleaching. And bioleaching is all about the circuit boards that become redundant, how you can extract the precious metals from that.
Right.
So
it's a big challenge globally, this.
I can't speak highly enough of the team at Lancaster University, how they've helped us, and we're starting to progress that now. And obviously that's much further down the line, but I think the stuff that you consider that you can do if you sit down and think about it, I think a lot of people are doing that. I think they could do better. I'm sure everybody would agree with that. But equally, I think there's a lot of resource locally. I mean, we work with Claire Louise as well. And I think there's a lot of resource locally to help people, really. And I think you'd be surprised at how much you can achieve in a short space of time if you reach out a little bit, especially around here, Dan, because again, I think that there's an awful lot of talented companies in this area that can help.
Yeah, absolutely. And interesting that you mentioned, the support from the universities. We've just got this real great framework, haven't we, in the region of people who are in tune to it. I definitely agree with that. And Sam, any closing thoughts from you there on?
Yeah, I mean, we have started having discussions with the next phase of procurement managers. NHS, we've been working really closely with NHS Digital in Leeds recently, and what we're finding there is they're taking discussions with sustainable procurers, and they're being trained up. So, I mean, the education side is now starting to go in, and that'd be a major thing for us, because if we can get the procurers on our side and have them understanding, the importance of reuse and sustainability, those guys could really change the game for us. And like I said, I think, so I keep going on about it's just a bit of a waiting game, because it is only just kind of getting raised now, but that's really promising. I mean, if NHS is starting to make moves with that, and that's such a battleship to try and tackle with how many different policies and everything that's going on in that place, if they're starting to look at it, there's no reason other organisations can look at it. Especially if you're smaller, you're an SME, you can make the changes today if you really want to. It just comes down, do you want to make that change?
I use that example with Sellafield. Sellafield are redistributing their laptops, and it's like, if Sellafield can do this, anybody can do this. We joke about, you don't want year 5 child designing a nuclear power station. Well, we might, we do, whatever. But but it's that culture, isn't it? And they worked through how they could overcome all of the issues about data and things like that to do this. And it's like, God blimey, if they can, if the NHS, which is not known as is quite an old-fashioned organisation, isn't it? Yeah. No offence to the NHS, but it kind of is.
I think they admit that as well, don't they? So.
Yeah.
So. And someone's just asking about making products, refurbished product, more readily available, and supply chains. Is there more that can be done there, do you think?
I think for us, we're always limited by what we're getting in because of the nature of the industry. We're reliant on clearances and people clearing the redundant furniture.
Yeah.
But there is a heck of a lot on the market. It's about talking to, when we go back to how much is being currently sent to the landfill every day. What goes to the landfill every day? We're only diverting on an annual basis the whole amount throughout the year compared to what's going to landfill every day. So it's a scary amount. So there is a huge market there. It's just, it's how do we divert it?
I guess that's similar for the phones. We've all got phones sat in withdrawals, haven't we? And some,
Oh yeah. I mean, I think the stat was, 2 or 3 per household still sat in there, and there's reluctance to do it. So yeah, there's a lot to do.
I think the message is, isn't it? It all starts with ourselves, doesn't it? And a lot of it's about us being introspective and thinking, how can we do our bit, and it'll send it on. I think we've kind of come to the sort of natural conclusion there, though, the end. So it goes without saying, a huge thank you, Craig, Claire Louise, Sam. I think it's been an extraordinary session and really interesting. I think very clear that the city region, we act locally, we spend locally, and we are doing our bit. We have excellent businesses that are doing their things to make sure we're recycling and refurbishing locally. And I think really bodes well for the future. I know that these guys have plenty of jobs coming up all the time, career opportunities in this space, and I'm sure there's going to be many more. So the City Region of Lancaster really is the place to look at if you're interested in low carbon innovation. So further on through the day, we've still got plenty more to come. We have a case study of Leaner Energy, a company right here on the White Cross that are doing incredible innovations with batteries and battery supplies. We've got a live stream. I'm really looking forward. Live stream later this afternoon with Henrik Johansson from Vaxio, with Dan Neville and Kevin Freer from Lancaster City Council, and they're going to be really talking about Vaxio as the world's leading city of low carbon sustainability. Our twin city, of course, as well. So they're going to be chatting about how we make sure that the city region can kind of follow that lead. And then at 4 o'clock, headline act, we've got Mike Gibson, MD of Moralis Data Infuse. Many of you'll know, former chair of Digital Lancashire, MD of Fat Media, and one of the most well-known names of the digital and tech community of the city region. So really looking forward to that. So hope you continue to join us, and we'll see you later on. Thanks once again.